the dynamics of this conflict, especially if we're looking at the last 4 years, the front lines have pretty much been frozen, and this has completely collapsed. The order has completely collapsed. So what's happening in Syria now is a huge change, and this will change the entire dynamics of the conflict, of this war that's been fought for 13 years.
Syria's President Assad says his country will defend its stability and territorial integrity after rebels appear to have taken control of most of the country's second largest city, Aleppo. We can speak to Stefanie Glinski, who is a Middle East correspondent for the Sunday Times. She's based in Istanbul. She's keeping across this story for us. Morning, Stefanie.
Good morning.
Do we have a sense of how much control rebel forces have right now? Are they completely in control of Aleppo?
Yes, it's very interesting. They have taken Aleppo. They've also taken Aleppo airport, and they've also made their way down further south towards the capital, Damascus. Of course, there are many other cities in the way. They've now made it towards a city called Hama, which is sort of between Aleppo and then another big city, Homs. So they are continuously proceeding. They are making their way further south. And of course, this is very much concerning for the Assad regime. A lot of the soldiers fled. Assad has, of course, also said that they will be ramping up and that they will be fighting the opposition. And at the same time, the opposition has made large gains. I mean, if we are thinking about when this started, this was on Wednesday. And since Wednesday, the opposition has taken Aleppo, lots of other villages and smaller towns on the way. So those are huge parts of the country in northern Syria.
And when we talk about the rebels, I mean, it's a loose term for who these people are. Just explain the types of people they are. In some cases, they're Islamists.
Yeah, so exactly, rebels is a very, very loose term. So who we have here is Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, short HTS. And they are a group mostly based out of Idlib, the province in the northwest of Syria. They are former al-Nusra, which is an al-Qaeda affiliate. So yes, they do, or they have been considered as an extremist group. They've now distanced themselves from al-Qaeda. They also sort of rebranding as more moderate. I mean, if we are looking at the statements in the last couple of days, their leadership has said that Christians, churches, all people, all civilians need to be protected. If soldiers are if government soldiers are surrendering, then these people should also be protected, is what they've been saying. And of course, the goal of the HTS has been to fight the Assad regime. That's what they've been doing. Like I said, they have been mostly based out of the Idlib province. And from there, they are now advancing. Now, having said that, of course, people in Syria, there are sort of mixed feelings. We have people on one hand, they are relieved that the Assad regime is being fought. A lot of people have, of course, left Syria because of Assad, because of the civil war that's been going on for 13 years. And people are celebrating. They're saying, we can now maybe go home. We can go to our towns. We can go to our villages. This might be good for Syria. At the same time, I'm also hearing a lot of opinions or a lot of concerns saying HTC is an extremist group. What does this mean for us? How are they going to rule our areas? So there's a little bit concern with that as well. But at the same time, a lot of people are saying it's good that these areas are being so-called liberated because they do not want the Assad regime to be controlling the country.
And of course, we know that Russia has been supporting the Assad regime for a long time. Clearly, Russia's attention in recent years has turned to Ukraine. I know there have been Russian airstrikes, but just talk to us a little bit about the backers of the Assad regime. If we're looking at Russia, if we're looking at Iran, they are people with other things on their mind other than the situation in Syria. And I wonder if that's why the rebels have chosen this moment. Have they seen it as kind of a weakening of Assad's allies?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if we're looking at previous opposition assaults, Russia especially has been essentially carpet bombing areas where the opposition was trying to make advances. Russia, of course, has been with the Assad regime, has been supporting, especially with air power. But Russia right now, of course, is busy in Ukraine, and other allies of Assad, such as Iran, such as Hezbollah, who have also always been fighting alongside Assad, have been weakened. Of course, we have the war in Lebanon. We have seen Iran and Hezbollah severely weakened by Israel. And again, there's a lot happening in Lebanon right now. There's the war in Gaza. So yes, many of Assad's allies have other agendas at the same time. And what we've seen in the last days is that there has been, of course, support, but a lot less support than we've previously seen from Russia, especially in terms of air support. And if we're looking at Hezbollah, of course, they are very much busy in Lebanon, and they would have previously been very much fighting with Assad. And in the last couple of months, especially ever since the war sort of spiraled out of control in Lebanon and Israeli attacks basically targeted most of the country, we've also seen a lot of people in Lebanon, also people affiliated with Hezbollah, leaving to Syria to find refuge. So the entire situation was a very, very good time for the HTS to say, we are now attacking the Assad regime. He is in the weakest possible position he could have been in recent years. And this is a good time for us to now take action.
How dangerous a time is this right now for Syria? I mean, you've talked about how the civilian population don't quite know which way this is going to go and whether this is a liberation or whether these rebels are actually potentially going to threaten them in the longer term. What's your sense of how dangerous this point in time is for Syria?
Yeah, it's certainly a very uncertain time. Even if we've looked at the last couple of days, we've had more than 300 people have already been killed. And let's remember, this war, since it started in 2011, has taken about 500,000 people. So a lot of people have been killed. How dangerous is it right now for Syria? It's certainly very, very uncertain. Assad, since the war started in 2011, so for 13 years it's been going on. So since then, we've seen Assad crack down on pro-democracy protests. We've seen him gain back large areas of the country. So he's clearly wanting to do that. So could he be doing the same? Could he be now fighting back? And would that mean that a lot of civilians could be killed in airstrikes? That's certainly a fear that most people are having, they're telling me. At the same time, after 13 years of this war, people also do want change. Right now is a very, very uncertain time. We've already seen a lot of people have left Aleppo. A lot of people have fled their homes because of airstrikes, because of the advances of the opposition. So it's very, very uncertain. It's also hard to know how much further the opposition will go. Will they take further cities further south of Aleppo? It's very much unclear what's going to happen. There's also been some clashes reported in the capital, Damascus, separately. From what I'm hearing from analysts, from people in Syria who've spoken to, they say it's all very, very uncertain, but certainly there's very big change ahead. And the dynamics of this conflict, especially if we're looking at the last 4 years, the front lines have pretty much been frozen, and this has completely collapsed. The order has completely collapsed. So what's happening in Syria now is a huge change, and this will change the entire dynamics of the conflict, of this war that's been fought for 13 years.
Stefanie, thank you for the update. That's Stefanie Glinski, who is Middle East correspondent for the Sunday Times, speaking to us from Istanbul.